Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scott C Business, and today we're here with Ivo Georgiev, who is the CEO at AdEx Network. Can you start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Ivo, and I'm the founder and CEO of AdEx. AdEx is a solution for basically for improved digital advertising. And we do that by introducing transparency and allowing the publishers to interact directly with the advertiser.
Awesome, awesome. So, how did you originally get into crypto and blockchain?
There was this cloud storage service, very similar to Dropbox. It was called Vuawa, and
Okay.
I think it was 2010 or 2011. And they were one of the first companies to accept Bitcoin payments ever, full stop. I used it basically for file storage. And I was still in high school back then. Um, so I was thinking, okay, maybe I can pay with Bitcoin, but I don't know what Bitcoin is. And they were saying that you could actually mine it on your CPU and therefore get the service for free, which
Mm.
for high school students sounded perfect. So I started mining Bitcoin on my CPU, and actually it worked out pretty well. I had enough to buy some cloud storage. But when I run the calculations now of how much Bitcoin I paid for that, it kind of hurts.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. And how long ago was that, did you say?
I think it was 2011 or 2010 or 2012. I'm not sure. It was still
Wow.
kind of possible to mine with CPU.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that is very, very early. I can't imagine how much Bitcoin ended up going to that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So can you give us a brief introduction to what the AdEx network is and what it's all about?
So basically, in display advertising and in digital advertising in general, one of the biggest problems is fraud, and fraud can be found
Mm,
on all the layers of the advertising stack. And the other problem is complexity in the intermediaries. To explain it in very simple terms, if you're an advertiser and you spend like $1,000 for advertising, uh, a, a big part of this is wasted on intermediaries and given as a fee to the network that you're using, and a lot of that is also lost to fraud. And you never have a clear, transparent picture of how much you spent and where, or you don't have a picture that you can trust. You often have a clear, transparent picture, but often you cannot trust it because of the network, because the network is not trustworthy.
hmm.
And essentially, it's very difficult for you to justify your spend. It's very difficult for you to say, okay, I spend these $1,000, I spend them on these publishers, and I know they're legit. So this is essentially the problem that we are solving by improving a few things. First of all, we improve the transparency, and we make sure that both the advertiser and the publisher get full reporting and full transparent reporting that they can trust of what is happening, of every single event, every single impression, every single click, etc. And second of all, because we eliminate the intermediaries, we reduce the fees significantly.
Okay.
So the fees on our network are only around 5%, unlike regular networks where it goes over 30%.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a huge improvement. So what problem does AdEx set out to solve in the market right now?
So it's mainly this problem. It's mainly the problem of the lack of reporting transparency, and to some extent, we also solve the fraud problem because of the way ADEX works, because of payments which are over payment channels on the blockchain. Because of that, it's impossible for us as an ad network to cheat, and also because of this, we give the needed reporting transparency to identify potentially fraudulent publishers. So this is the problems that we solve: transparency and fraud, and we are hoping that this will make advertising so much more efficient that it will become a viable business model again, and it will become a viable business model for many parties, companies, which it wasn't a viable business model for them before.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So how did the AdEx network get its name, and then what were some of the original motivations for creating it?
Also a really good question. Regarding the name, I think it originated as a like a development name, or I don't know. It used to be a temporary name, and then it just stuck because everyone liked it in the team. And regarding the way it originated, we were working on another project which still exists and recently hit 10 million users, by the way. It's
Wow.
called Streamio, and it's a video streaming platform. And Me and my co-founder Dimo, we are both the founders of Streamio and AdEx. And uh, back when Streamio it started growing rapidly, like 30,000 users per day, and we didn't have any business model, and no VCs wanted to invest in it because we didn't have a business model. So at some point we started trying out advertising, and along with our rapid growth, it worked fantastically in the beginning. But then our revenue started declining, and with no apparent explanation, our traffic kept rising, but the revenues kept declining, and we were getting more and more like squeezed out and screwed by particular ad networks. And at some point, we even caught the ad networks themselves in fraud. We removed one of the ad networks from Streamio, and the traffic fell to zero as it should. But then a few days after, a huge spike of traffic came from this network, unexplained spike of traffic from the US, and we didn't have any users from the US. And then the salesperson from this network called us and said, "Are you insane? Why do you want to stop working with us, considering you have such an amazing traffic?" So they literally injected fake traffic in order to preserve us as a customer,
Mm.
and that was the turning point where we realized that we can trust no, we pretty much cannot trust any ad network, and we decided to start our own. So that's pretty much the origin story.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's really hard to tell, and on the consumer side, we have very little information or like awareness of these kinds of problems, like with ad networks. For businesses, we don't really see a lot of that, so it's good to kind of hear the business side of the issues in that space. So, where do you, or rather, how do you feel that AdEx fits in with other similar projects? I don't know how similar you would compare, like maybe like Brave browser's ad network, or like the way Pre-Search does ads. How do you feel you fit in with other similar projects?
Okay, so that's a fantastic question. I want to start with BAT, and first of all, disclaimer: I'm not perfectly familiar um, with their solution, but um, what I can tell you is that AdEx is fundamentally different because BAT tries to disrupt advertising as a whole and tries to tries to make a new model work in which the users get rewarded for attention, and then the users get to decide what they do with the tokens. While AdEx tries to replicate the regular ad network model in a more transparent and fraud-resistant way. So it's less experimental in a way, and it's I would say it's a different thing. It's also technically possible to do to reward the users for their attention in AdEx, but for various business reasons, we choose not to go that way. And another important difference is that AdEx works with DAI, which is price stable, it's pegged to the US dollar, while BAT works with BAT. And the comparison to traditional networks, it's very important to point out that we are not trying to compete with Google or Facebook. And first of all, they're huge. And second of all, they have a ton of data and they're doing targeting perfectly. And there's no way to compete with that. And it's very, very hard to compete with on whatever level with someone like Facebook and Google. We are hoping that eventually over time, as privacy regulations get stricter and etc., then maybe we will have more of a chance. But in general, we are competing with all of the alternatives to Facebook and Google, and those are a lot. And the comparison there is that basically we're providing more reporting transparency and more fraud resistance.
Awesome, awesome. So, where do you see AdEx going in the next year, and then ideally in the next 5 years? I know 5 years is a long time, so just what would you see if everything worked out in the most ideal sense?
Okay, so and I'm probably going to skip answering the 5 years because that's a huge amount of time for a company
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
us. But in 1 year, we are hoping to have multiple. Um, we are hoping to have achieved a proper product market fit. Because for now we only have that at a very very tiny level. We have a bunch of publishers related to video streaming and some advertisers who are buying that traffic, and we also have the same for crypto, but it's on a very tiny scale. And in 1 year, we're hoping to have something like um, tens of thousands of DAI of volume every month, hopefully, organic volume. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what we're hoping for.
Awesome, awesome. So, what is the current user base, or like how many people are currently utilizing AdEx?
So in terms of publishers and advertisers, we have over 1,000 signups,
Okay.
and from those, over 100 are active. And in terms of like end users who are seeing AdEx ads, uh, obviously those are not users of the platform, but in terms of the scale at which this project has reached, uh, only Streamio, which is one of the publishers, has, as I said, 10 million signups, and it shows AdEx ads to every user. And then there are a bunch of crypto sites which also have hundreds of thousands of daily visitors. Um, so yeah, in terms of end users who are seeing AdEx ads and they don't know that this is in some way blockchain related, then it's in the millions. And in terms of signups who are actually using the platform, it's over 1,000.
Awesome, awesome. So where can everyone go to actually learn more about AdEx?
Our website, AdEx.network, and it has a bunch of resources, a bunch of, I would say one of the best resources for learning is the frequently asked questions section, because it's very well developed over the years of all of the frequently asked questions, because people tend to ask the same questions. Um, and also, there's a GitHub specification of our protocol for the more technically um, advanced users, the power users, or like the crypto nerds, etc. And yeah, our website is a great starting point.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen um any solutions previously where they were trying to fix or build upon the traditional ad network model, but then incorporating it with crypto and blockchain. So I think that's a very unique take that you guys have gone with. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we end this off? Because
Yeah,
I've gone through all the questions I have.
yeah, a bunch of things. So first of all, I would like to add on your last sentence and say that there are a bunch of similar solutions. I want to say that we were the first, but it's arguable. Like there is ad shares, no ad token. So ad token announced uh, a few months before us. We announced at the end of 2016. Um, but there's a bunch of crypto solutions. What AdEx is unique with is that it's putting all the payments on payment channels, which means that every impression is paid individually. And this is what gives us the reporting transparency, and this is what allows us to scale beyond the limits of the blockchain. Because, for example, we had at peak times we handled over 300 million impressions per month, and we are capable of handling 7,000 per second. And those
Wow.
are unheard of numbers on the blockchain, but it's possible thanks to payment channels. And because we do all of the impression payments on payment channels, this also guarantees the transparency, because the report is the actual, like the payments are the actual report. So having those payments done in a transparent and trustless way also ensures that you have the impression count in a transparent and trustless way. And actually, another thing worth pointing out is that we are the largest payment channel network on Ethereum, and there's a great HackerNoon article about that. I'm going to send it to you on email.
Okay, perfect.
I guess the only thing that compares in some level is Raiden, but Raiden doesn't do 300 million payments per month, for sure. And another thing to add about the user count, I'm just checking in our spreadsheet. There's an auto-generated spreadsheet of user stats, and we've hit 1,500.
Okay.
So that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's everything I had for you. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I think a lot of people will benefit from learning about AdEx, and I think there'll be a lot of people who might want to take advantage of using that platform and taking advantage of the solution you guys have created. So again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this.
Sure, thank you. Actually,
All right.
I think there's something big that we missed. Is there time for one more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so a topic that we didn't touch upon is preserving the privacy of the end user. This is something
Mm,
extremely important that we missed, and we do it by doing contextual targeting, which is targeting the ads based on the content of the page and not based on what you know about the user. And this allows us to not know anything about the user. We don't collect any user data ever. There are no cookies. There is no local storage. So it's a completely privacy preserving solution. And we believe this will help us in business terms, because with privacy regulations becoming stricter and stricter, we can use this as a selling point.
yeah, I guess you mentioned that. Yeah, that makes sense because a lot of well, basically every ad network needs your data to be able to target. So if you guys can get around that, I think that definitely puts you guys in a very unique position around privacy. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
awesome. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, is that everything you'd like to share today then?
Yeah, that's everything.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, yeah. Again, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing the solution with everyone. So, thank you so much, and I hope everyone watching gets a lot of benefit out of watching this. Comment any questions or anything you have below, and make sure to give them a follow on Twitter and all the various channels that you guys are on. What are all your socials? Like, are you on Twitter, Telegram? If you want to just like lay some of those out.
So we are on Twitter and on Reddit, but we are mainly on Twitter.
Okay. Perfect. And what's your handle?
It's AdEx_network.
Okay, awesome. So everyone go and follow AdEx_network and make sure to check out their website, which is AdEx.network. And again, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Have a good day. Bye.